Hello everyone, thanks for joining us today. My name is Alan from the Innisfil Idea Lab and Library. In today's Tinkershop tutorial, we are going to learn how to design laser cut boxes using the old website MakerCase. Alright, let's get started. So, like I said, it's old.makercase.com. It's really handy for creating easy designs for the laser cutter, either in acrylic or in the Baltic birch plywood. And we can create very specific designs, and it will handle the pattern, basically the flat pattern for us. If you prefer to do your design in inches, that's sort of the first thing you'll do. That's sort of your choice, however you think best. And but when we get down to the material thickness, we may switch to millimeters, possibly, to make sure we have the right thickness, even though we are using 1/8 either Baltic birch or in some cases acrylic plastic. So, like I said, we have the choice of inches or millimeters. Let's just pretend, for example, that we're going to make some playing card boxes, and I'm just guessing here, 2.5 inches wide, and let's say the cards are 3.75. And you'll notice that this little graphic display here is changing as we're changing those dimensions. And I'm just going to input one more dimension. So once you've changed the value, either you click to the next box, it'll reflect that change, or you can hit enter. It's also important to note that, for example, if we were going to make a specific case for playing cards, we would very carefully measure the outside dimensions, the width and the height of the cards, and make sure they're going to fit inside of the box. So in that case, we could choose to figure out what the inside dimensions have to be, and then it will automatically add on the material thickness as a part of that. So we don't need to do a custom material thickness because, generally speaking, unless you're bringing in your own material to the hackLAB, you will just go with 1/8 thickness there. You'll notice also from this document here, this little preview, that it's just doing sort of a standard butt joint, and it's automatically removing the length, sort of double the material thickness here. So it's figuring that out for you. It's going to give us a flat pattern in the end. This is a little harder to put together in terms of gluing and holding all the pieces. And it's a little bit stronger if we switch over to finger joint. So you'll see these nice little zigzag little finger joint tabs. And it's very important also then to have the material thickness is correct, so that those tabs will properly correspond to how deep the material needs to be held together. I find this default setting is a little bit busy, so if we just scroll down a little bit, we can change the tab width. I'll just show you, sort of bring it down really. So really, you can go really strong and really tight. Incidentally, the tabs are also very useful in terms of strengthening that glue join as well as holding it together. I find it's really easy to, once you get three faces together, it's really helpful to just sort of, they stay fairly snug together. But I don't want it to look this busy, and it takes a little more time on the laser to cut out. So I'm going to bring it all the way to the far end there, and sort of a little more relaxed, a little less busy, and yeah. So that will create a special laser cut plan. It figures out all of these dimensions for us. Really handy. It's sort of like putting together a 3D puzzle afterwards. So when we click on Generate Laser Cut Plans, it will automatically create an SVG file. So that is something that, if you're familiar with the hackLAB, is we're using already with Inkscape. So I'll click that. It's showing us a nice little preview of what that will look like as a flat pattern. They've laid it all out nicely for us. We want all these to be cut lines. For a little more advanced usage, we could figure out exactly what the number is in terms of how much material is being taken away so that these will fit together very snugly. In some cases, you can even get away with not using any glue, but we'll save that for another day. So we're going to click on Download Plans. Okay. So it's gone into so I'm still in the web browser in Chrome here. And I'm going to click on this little tab and Show in Finder. So it will automatically just call your flat pattern case plans. You can see I've done a previous one here. I'm just going to double click on this one that I just produced, and it will automatically open it in Inkscape, as you can see from that design here, the logo for Inkscape. Now, if you don't have your computer set up to automatically open Inkscape, SVG files with Inkscape, it may automatically open it with a web browser because they're also compatible with web browsers. You could change that in settings to always open with Inkscape. So for those that are not as familiar with Inkscape, I'll just point out we're default start out with our sort of select and transform tool here. We have our flat designs here, and we have this little rectangle just around those shapes. This is kind of our canvas. Anything that's in this canvas area will be represented for the file for the laser. And we can't directly sort of affect this sort of canvas. This was determined by MakerCase, and they just give us a little bit of room around those shapes. If we do want to go in and modify that, for example, I want to know, or at least visually be able to have a sense of how big this is compared to a sheet of 24-inch by 12-inch plywood piece that we stock. So I'll go into File and down to Document Properties, and here we have Page. So here we could have sort of go with a standard letter or legal size paper size, so we can get a sense of how big it is on the screen and how big we should expect it to be. So the first thing we'll do is we'll change our display units. In this case, I'm just going to change it to inches for now, and also because we're not picking a preset size, we're going to do a custom size, and we're going to keep it in landscape. So knowing that our maximum size for our laser and our acrylic and plywood is 24 inches wide by 12 inches tall. And the only other thing I'll just say while we're here is go up to the tab where it says Snap, and sometimes these settings are much higher in terms of like when you're moving objects around. It tries to be helpful and sort of magnetically bring those points together, reference points, so that you don't have to sort of manually adjust and try and get your best there. But I find it could be a little bit too pushy, so I do like to bring them all down to roughly 10. This one, when it's set to always snap, it's all the way at 50. So I like to click on snap only when closer than 10 here, for example. So that should be everything within document properties for now. We'll close that. So now we can see how big a sheet of plywood or acrylic would be. And yeah, just give us a sense of how much material we're going to end up using and what that would approximately cost. So now I've sort of lassoed all of the pieces as one, and you can see that each piece has this sort of dotted outline that's been added to that as well, showing us that the sort of dimensions of each piece there, as well as because we have them all selected, they have these little arrows for possibly elongating or stretching the shape, which we don't want to do because the dimensions of the tabs must stay as they are now, or they won't work at all, or very well anyways. They won't fit. So we don't want to elongate or stretch that in any way. As a general rule, I like to tuck my design files up into the top left corner of the document because that's where the laser starts from. Any space between the outside edge of that document and your design is just wasted material. So there's no need to do that. And we just don't want your shape, especially where the dotted outline is, to be on or over that document page. So we're a little bit further away right now, or zoomed out. Actually, down in the bottom right corner, we're only looking at it at 24% zoom here, for example. So I could input it there directly, but the shorthand over here is off to the right-hand side. There's 3 magnifying glasses roughly in the middle, and the top one will zoom to fit whatever you currently have selected on the screen, as large as it can within your window. Or the middle one will fit all of your drawings, your design elements on the screen. So if you're missing a certain piece, or if you moved it and you're not sure where it went, that's really handy to click on the middle magnifying glass there. And the bottom one will make this new page we just reshaped fit on the screen. So we'll just do that one, just get a little bit closer. So one thing I can tell as well about this is, just from experience, that this outline is not the correct dimensions in order for laser cutting. So again, I'm going to sort of click a little bit higher and to the side, and pressing and holding the left mouse key or touchpad key, click and drag a box around all of our shapes. I like to call it lassoing sometimes. And we're just selecting all of the pieces here. So for this, that allows to change all the dimensions, or sorry, all the properties on them at once, rather than going through them doing each piece. So I already have the fill and stroke settings tab open here, but I'll just close it just so we know where to find it. So on the one hand, it's just, we could just click on this little paintbrush icon here, or it is also found under Objects and Fill and Stroke here. So opened it up again. So the first tab is the fill color, which we don't have any color here right now. So I can click on a solid color. It's going to fill it in. That's a little bit much. So normally anything that you would see within the fill settings is roughly, equivalent to what the laser would try to engrave on your material. In this case, we don't have to turn that function on. We're just using the cutting function. I just want it to fill in some kind of color or shade so we can see where the shapes are. Because when we go to the next tab, actually rather the third tab, when we set the thickness of that line to be a cut line, it gets very thin, and some monitors, some screens don't really show it that well, so it's kind of hard to see where your shapes are sometimes without a fill put in there. So changing this to inches, I'm going to change this number to 0.001. So that is the specific number that the laser needs to see for the thickness of that outline, and then it will understand, oh, this is something I should cut. If it's 0.002, so 1/1000th of an inch difference, it will try to engrave it or ignore it entirely. A little bit frustrating. So I hit enter. So now we can see it's not much of an outline apparent here, and I'll just reinforce that by turning off the infill color. Yeah, so it's very hard to see on the screen. We'll just put that infill color back in there. So yeah, these would be our cut faces. If we wanted to then engrave some designs or words or anything on these faces, we would then turn off that engrave fill because we don't want to interfere with the designs. I'm just moving these shapes a little bit away from each other, because if we were to zoom in by hitting the plus symbol next to the backspace key, a handy way, we don't necessarily want them to be sharing the same face. What we could do, and if it was a large file and there was a lot of this sort of line sharing, we could actually delete one of the lines, but that's a little bit advanced for now, so we won't worry about that. I'll hit minus now on the keyboard, again, sort of in line with the backspace key. And we're just going to nudge these shapes away from each other so that we're not getting too much charring with the laser passing through that space more than once. So now we have a little bit of room there. The laser is very accurate. It's not like we're having to give a little bit of wiggle room for human error or that sort of skill level. It can do all of that work quite easily. So another thing to note is that yes, this is a free program. It's free to download and works for Mac computers, Linux computers, PC, Windows, and it's quite powerful. But it does have a few small quirks, and sometimes it may crash, although they've done another updated version that's probably more stable now. And but we're just going to save it, and it's important to save your files when you're working on them, whether it's a word processing essay or anything like that, because it's always sad when you lose your work. So now I'm going to go to File again. Now I'm going to go to Save As. Because it already had a name, I have to go to Save As, and I'm just going to call this Magic the Gathering Cards. I don't know this is the exact dimension, I'm just guessing, but this is just one possible case where you could use it or make a gift or, you know, protect your hockey cards, you know, for proper storage. Anything, you'd really be surprised what comes to mind. So I'm going to click Save, and that saves as an Inkscape SVG. And now we're almost done. I'm also going to save it as, so instead of SVG, we click in that bar there, and fifth from the top is portable document format. So that is the actual file that we send to the laser. So we get a little pop-up window here asking for specifics. We won't really get into that right now, but we just click OK. Just some choices that need to be made. So that's most of what's necessary for creating a nice box with MakerCase, the old version of MakerCase. I will also, let's see, let's type some alternate links. So, just so you can. If you type this into your web browser, there's a very advanced another box tool which has a lot of parameters. If you just want to play with it and get a preview of some of these more advanced boxes that have functions and flexible hinges and that sort of thing, connections, things that move. There's like even equivalent of a little roll top desk type box there as well. And there's the newer version of MakerCase as well. So my email is acornbridge at Phil DLab. No, DLab, yeah. .ca. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them out to me, and I'll do my best to answer them. If you get stuck, you can send your SVG files, and I'll look them over. And otherwise, hopefully you'll sort of get some chance to practice when you're home, and we'll end up doing some laser bookings for people with completed files, hopefully in the not too distant future. So thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. And yeah, thank you.